All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yeah, so welcome to Chicago Junction, the radio program that is all about the amazing world of railroading and both the many facets of the industry and model railroading. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou, and here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Chief Electrical Engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Monday, May the 15th, the year 2017. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Thank you, John. Now, normally at this time, I would turn it over to our chief dispatcher, who keeps control over the panel. Tonight, I will be sharing the duty as the head ringmaster, along with my fellow cohorts sitting around here. So we might stumble through this. Again, I am Brian Ballou, your announcer. I am a model railroader, O-gauger, and outdoor large scale. I am a member of the Chicago Area Garden Railway Society. I am a volunteer for Operation Lifesaver. I belong to several museums, Heston Steam Museum, the Reading Company Technical and Historical Society of Reading, Pennsylvania, the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in San Diego, California. And to my right...
Hi, this is Doug Kenyuk. I'm N-scaler, rail historian. I belong to the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, and I also teach part-time about computers. But railroad history is probably the best.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a lifelong Lionel operator and collector. I'm a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant.
Hi, it's Dave DeRuska, retired locomotive engineer from various and sundry railroads around Chicago. Also, vice president and program director for the Black Hawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, and editor of the blog Player with Railroads, exciting Chicago railroad history on your computer.
And our Facebook guy.
And, oh yes, and I do run the Chicago Junction Facebook page.
Well, so good evening, everybody. And I understand that we have a caller online. Is that correct, sir?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Pugh.
Oh, yes.
Are you with us?
I am, yes. I thought maybe you were referring to someone else. Sorry.
Well, welcome aboard to Chicago Junction.
Thanks for having me.
I understand you are... Well, explain to everybody just who you are exactly.
So, I'm actually an employee of the Illinois Commerce Commission. I'm sure, as everybody knows, we're a regulatory agency. We regulate phones, gas, cable, utilities. And because we have jurisdictional oversight over all of the public crossings in the state of Illinois, we also have a rail safety section. And within that section, we have federally certified track inspectors, signal inspectors, hazardous materials, operating practices, and then myself being more on the public education and outreach side. So essentially the go-to person for railroad safety concerns or issues throughout the state. It just so happens that I also am the state coordinator for the Operation Lifesaver program in Illinois, which, for those people that don't know, it is the nation's sanctioned railroad safety education and outreach program.
Oh, well, thank you, Chip. Of course, I am one of your volunteers, firmly believing in the program, along with Dave DeRuska here.
Hello, David.
Hello, Chip. How you doing?
Gosh, there's an old friendly face.
Yeah, he's been telling me the stories.
No, I
Oh
haven't.
gosh, well, don't put those on the air, please.
No, we'll save that for the gag reel. Anyway, that's right. You help with all the coordinating with the volunteers, getting our word out. Well, definitely around Chicago, and we'll get in the whole state. And we've been doing pretty good, I guess, because our numbers are going down.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if we looked at where we were when we started Operation Lifesaver in Illinois in 1976, at that time we had 800 crashes at our crossings and 100 people died that year. And if we looked at last year, we had 120 crashes with 22 fatalities. So we certainly have made tremendous progress. Of course, as you know, and we stress with our volunteers, I mean, our ultimate goal is to get to zero.
That is correct. And I guess, and we're also taking on a harder look at going for the younger kids, especially trespassing.
Yeah, certainly you could make the argument that, like we do with driver's ed, that if you educate new young drivers at an early age, the hope is that they adopt model and safe behavior as they get older. I guess the same could be said for educating kids at a young age about the dangers of trespassing. And interestingly enough, maybe in part because we've done so much outreach in the schools, it's not kids that are the primary age group involved in trespassing incidents, not just in Illinois, but all over the country.
Oh, that is correct. A lot of the adults. And a lot of it is sportsmen.
That's right. And certainly when you're talking about people from 40 to 60, if they're the parents of the kids that are getting the good message, they're not setting a very good example.
That is correct. Well, it's like that program that happened in at Plainfield North, telling the kids about drinking and driving and what could happen.
Yeah, that the Road to Reality program that the CN put on just a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't realize at the time, but the Plainfield School District is the third largest school district in the state of Illinois with, I think, just under 13,000 students.
I didn't realize they were that big either. But they say they all participate in it some way or another.
Yeah, it's a great program, and certainly the CN is to be commended for their continued effort to try and reach those kids. And I even believe that there are students that watch the video or the YouTube video, on their computers.
Yeah, that is a good thing. And I know every once in a while you hear somebody from one of the public service stations, like WTTW. They mention it a lot in some of their talks.
Yeah. So it certainly has got a broader outreach than just even the kids that were involved. And you remember just like I do, even though those kids and those parents that were there knew that, it was a quote-unquote pretend scenario, I observed people actually crying.
Oh. Oh, when it hits like that, maybe the message will stick.
You bet. Yeah. When you can reach the emotional side of the thought of those people losing their child, you can make sure that, they're going to stress the importance of not drinking and driving.
That is correct. Well, getting back on to another track, one of the reasons why railroaders are so, because of all the close calls we have. Dave would like to say something.
Yeah, I got a question for you. There's a big problem with professional photographers using the tracks as a prop for their for photographs and stuff. I mean, you see all kinds of wedding and graduation photos being taken out there, just families sitting in the middle of tracks. Has Operation Lifesaver done any kind of outreach to the professional photography community at all?
So in the state of Illinois, a couple years ago, I did actually speak to the Illinois Professional Photographers Association about that very problem that you brought up, Dave. And interestingly enough, there were some people that were maybe longtime photographers that certainly sounded sincere in that they didn't realize that what they were doing was against the law, and certainly do let them know that that was the case. That was probably helpful. But yeah, we've certainly addressed it, and you know, the railroads have taken such a hard stance on it lately that let's just say that a photographer was observed taking pictures of somebody under the age of 18. So they are not an adult, maybe for graduation or something else. If they were to arrest them, they would not only be both arrested and given a citation for trespassing on railroad property, a $150 fine and a mandatory court appearance, but it's quite possible that the photographer would also receive a citation for endangering the life of a child, which, as you know, is a felony. And that's probably not a good thing to promote as a professional photographer, that you have a felony for taking pictures on the tracks. And we all know the reason why we don't want them up there, because unfortunately people have been killed taking pictures up on the tracks.
Right, there's a lot. In one of the groups that I belong to on Facebook, it's basically rail fans for rail safety. Whenever they see a photographer posting these pictures, they'll call them out. I mean, they'll send them a text or an email or tweet them on Twitter and say, you know, what you're doing is illegal and dangerous. And these people will say, well, you know, the tracks are abandoned, and oh, we're watching out for the trains, and we're being real careful. And they just fail to understand the fact that it's unlawful.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you should mention that, because maybe in part because I did speak to the Professional Photographers Association, that every once in a while, maybe 6 times a month or so, I'll get pictures, whether it be somebody posted their services on Facebook and had pictures of kids on the tracks or what have you. But I remember we caught this, it was actually a family picture, and it was actually, I can't remember the name of it, but it was kind of like Groupon, and they were advertising family portrait pictures, and they were on the tracks. And we were able to track them down because somebody saw some rail marker that looked familiar, and they ended up finding out that the picture, I think, was taken in Ohio. But they tried to say that it was abandoned track, and certainly our argument would be, whether it's abandoned track or not, in most cases the person that is looking at that picture is not going to make that determination that it's abandoned track. They're just going to say, wow, you know, what a great idea to take pictures up on the railroad tracks. So this wasn't abandoned track. It was actually mainline CSX track. And I think that they were able to, just based on, you know, the evidence of the picture, were able to issue a citation to these people.
Well, I would hope that you know, I know there's a lot of rail fans out there who keep their eye out for this sort of stuff, and I've also know that they have, if they know the location, they actually report it to the individual railroad and let them know, you know, what's going on. So,
well, I encourage people, if they're listening tonight and they do come across pictures of people taking pictures up on the tracks, you know, please let us know. Every one of them that I get, I do track down and either talk to them personally or send them an email, and surprisingly, a majority of the people, once I've talked to them, are certainly sympathetic to our cause and at least respond.
Ah.
Well, thank you.
Oh, right now you're doing a project. When you and I were communicating, you said you were in Effington?
Actually, I'm on my way to, well, I think it's, tonight I'm in Robinson, but tomorrow the event is an officer on the train event starting in Palestine. It'll go through Palestine, Robinson, Newton, and Oblong, and then we'll turn around and go back.
Okay, so you're doing an officer on the train with that.
That's right.
And that's where the police officers get bird's eye view, what goes on from the engineer's point of view, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty well coordinated effort. So I think in this case there are 20 plus crossings through those communities. So there's a point person on the train with a radio, and they're all on the same frequency. Police officers, county sheriffs, and I think the state police will be riding tomorrow, but they also have officers staged at every one of the crossings that we're going to be traversing. And if they observe somebody driving around lowered gates at an active crossing, the radio guy says, go get the guy that just drove around the gates at Clinton Street. Or even if it's a passive crossing, while there's nothing electrical and mechanical that lets somebody know a train's coming, certainly the headlight under the statute or the bell or the whistle would be enough of an indication that the train's coming. And if they just, shoot out in front of the train, they can get arrested as well.
And I think people fail to realize that once the gates activate, you're supposed to stop. I mean, it's
right.
not hurry up and get across before the gates go down.
Right. And, I want to stress to people that, we don't do these things because we're on a power trip and we want to be the heavy and give people tickets. It's about changing dangerous and unsafe behavior. And in fact, I remember one we did with the Union Pacific a couple years ago in Mount Vernon, where a woman drove around the lowered gates and she was pulled over, and as it turns out, she had 3 kids under the age of 10, and none of them were in restraints and no child seats.
Uh-oh.
So suffice to say, it was a long day for that woman.
Mr. Pugh, I had the opportunity to ride on one of those Kevin Barry. I had the opportunity to ride on one of those trains out of the Norfolk Southern Yard at 103rd in Indiana. I want to say 20 years ago now. And I could not believe the number of people that would just blatantly cross. One car missed getting hit by no more than 3 feet. And there was a attentive young officer waiting when that car emerged from the gates. We did see him with the vehicle stopped as we went by.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. And as I tell people, when we're talking to them in presentations, inevitably the choice is yours. If you want to try and beat a train, that's your choice. But having seen the end result of somebody's bad choice over 400 times, having to investigate train-related fatalities in the state, if you guess wrong, more than likely you're not getting another chance.
And now you know why engineers get gray early or lose it all.
Well, I'm not an engineer. How come I'm getting gray?
Proximity.
Well, yeah, that's it. Sympathy pains.
Yes, exactly.
Surprisingly, when you write a ticket for jumping the gates, almost every judge that I've been in front of after writing someone a ticket is profoundly less than sympathetic to the explanation that was offered.
Well, it's the same.
Well, Yeah, when we get a chance, we do put judges on those Operation Lifesaver trains, and in some cases, we've been trying it.
You're breaking up, sir.
Chip, are you still there? I think we lost our...
Went under a viaduct.
If not a chicken.
Try it again.
Chip, are you there? We seem to have dead time.
We need some sort of appropriate music to fill in,
You know, the station. Oh,
Too early for
we
station
lost,
identification.
Yeah, it's too early.
In the last week, I've seen 2 different engines out on the roadway. One of them a Metra, the other one I believe was a Norfolk Southern, with the Operation Lifesaver logo and stenciling, trying to convince people to stop, look, and live.
Look, listen, and live.
Look, listen, and live.
Well, another thing that they do at Metra is the station blitz.
Yeah,
You've been
well, I was
involved
just
with
going to talk about that. The station blitz is where we have Operation Lifesaver volunteers, and we hand out brochures, and it's usually in the morning, usually before the first trains come into the station, and we stay there for a couple hours, and we hand out brochures and explain things, and also the city police are there, and they're on the platform with us, and they actually end up writing a lot more tickets because the people, without thinking, when the gates start flashing or the bell starts ringing in the station, they'll start walking across the platform to get over to the side of the track that they need to be. We actually had a couple that ran the gate there at Park Ridge.
Oh, I think he's back. Chip is back.
Are you back, sir?
Yes.
Yay.
I must be in an area where not a lot of people live, so there's like limited cell reception. I apologize.
No, don't worry. You know, we were learning how to tap dance.
Okay.
As we were saying, we're mentioning station blitzes with the same effect with the volunteers. We're handing out all the brochures and stuff, and also some of the city police are there. And even the people that are sitting there seeing it, and they still run across the flashing gates and stuff, trying to get to the right track to get the train.
Yeah,
And,
it's hard to believe.
and they don't make that train. It is hard to believe. Chip, I want to thank you for calling and allowing the interview with us.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about what we do and the importance of it, and I'd be happy to be on any time you can have me.
Oh, we'd probably love to have you down here in the studio with us.
Yeah, I'd love to see Dave again, too.
Bring Tom McNamara with you.
Have a
Okay.
great night.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night and safe travel.
Okay, thank you.
Tom McNamara was one of
was
Metra's Operation Lifesaver
Lifesaver,
presenters, and a rather large fellow.
I met him first when I started with the C&W,
Yeah, and we used to make a lot of fun of him.
and they ended up becoming Santa on the trains.
Hey, how about some calendar items here? We got some.
Okay, let's start
coming
going down our list.
We got coming up on May 20th is the Homewood Rail Fest, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. At the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium. But the vendors will be in a large tent on Martin Avenue Square and not inside the auditorium. Free admission. May 27th through the 30th, Memorial Day weekend at the Illinois Rail Museum. Steam, diesel, and electric trains will operate all 3 days. Active military personnel and their families admitted free with a military ID. June the 2nd, which is the first Friday, the Blackhawk chapter will be having their monthly meeting, and our presenter will be Robbie Gregg, who will be sharing some of his excellent contemporary railroad photography. June 10th and 11th, Railway Post Office Days at the IRM. see how railroads played a major part in handling of the U.S. mail, and visit a post office on a train. June 11th, the Great American Train Show at the DuPage County Fairgrounds. Adult admission $7. Children under whatever are free. They don't have it down here. June 11th is also the 41st annual Kane County Railroadiana and Model Train Show and Sale at Kane County Fairgrounds. And we'll stop there because I'm sure we're going to have another program before the rest of them.
Okay, that'll be it. Well, that sounds pretty good. Doug.
Yeah, I got a couple items here. Metra is going to replace the Healy station at Pulaski and Fullerton. Finally. They got $7.3 million worth of replacement. So it's most of the land around the station, which down at the street level used to have their freight station, is now a Home Depot or something. All that land's been converted and gentrified, so there's only one customer there that receives freight, and that's on the other side of the tracks, some plastic company. So they're talking about they have on-demand heat and stuff like that. Metro's going to spend about $216 million on infrastructure in the coming year. Bridges of all kinds. They're going to spend $34 million to replace the single track bridge over the Fox River, over by Elgin. Let's see, what else? And they got the ones up the UP North line are scheduled for replacement finally. That's when they get that done, I believe all the bridges now on the west and the northwest lines would be done. And that just leaves northwest and north line, once they complete that, those bridge replacements will be done. And that just leaves the bridges on the west line. That's why certain Metro locomotives cannot be on the UP lines right now, because the UP claims the bridges won't hold them. So they keep those older units. Yeah,
that was a very good excuse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For a long time.
So Metro's
That's why they never had
bridges.
steam locomotives up there either.
Yeah,
They had
so that's why Metro's
cars.
replacing the bridges so that they can have the heavier locomotives operate on there. Here on the Heritage line, they're gonna new station at Romeoville. So they're spreading the money all over the system, basically. They're replacing track here and there and stuff like that. The SC-44 Charger locomotive, watch for it. It's going to be operating on the Metra and Amtrak lines. Not sure when, but the article was a little vague on where it's going to operate. But
Well, it'll be on the line going to St. Louis. They'll be running on the Heritage Line corridor.
yeah, it
Amtrak
doesn't-
has a few trains out of there.
Yeah, the article doesn't say it. It just says it's going to be on Amtrak. And a couple of Metro runs for testing.
So they might test it on some other
Yeah.
trains.
Yeah.
Well, if it's going to St. Louis, it runs on the track that runs through Summit. Because my daughter took that to St. Louis, and it hits Summit about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's the Heritage
Yeah.
line.
Desolate little station. Looks more like a CTA bus stop.
That's the Amtrak stop there. No. East Troy Museum is upgrading their track for over the whole 3/4 mile section of it. Not sure why, but the main factory, the tube company up there, stopped receiving freight cars a long time ago, so it's just basically the museum using the tracks right now. So I'm not sure why they're suddenly upgrading all their track. So their plans is to do the whole 7.2 mile lines to a higher standard.
That's going to be high-speed rail.
Yeah, there we go.
Get it up to 40.
Finally, Rochelle Railroad Park got a interesting donation from the Whitcomb factory. It's been torn down in the area. And they got a turntable that was used to turn narrow gauge, the company's narrow gauge locomotives inside the factory. They got the turntable donated to them.
Where are they going to put it?
Somewhere on the property.
I mean, how big is it?
It's not very big. They were talking about the turn. It says it looks like a wagon wheel, so it's not very big. Again, it was used for the internal narrow gauge locomotives for the factory.
And they were four-wheel critters.
Yeah, and they said that it's going to be out there someplace. Right now, it's at the other end of the property. It's rusty. They're going to clean it up and put it on display.
It'd be
from the
sort of
factory.
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motorized or Armstrong?
Yes.
Yes? Both?
Yes, the arm. The arm is the motor.
Yeah, there you go.
And we will take this moment at this time for station identification.
And you are listening to Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, May the 15th, year 2017. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich. And now back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
And ready for part two. Okay.
I got something about the Charger locomotives that relevant to that. The Illinois Department of Transportation awarded a company called SNC Lavalin the contract to maintain the new equipment, the Charger locomotives, and the new rail cars that are supposedly going to be built by Nippon Shiro if they ever figure out how to not make them crush when they crash. But the big question here is they have no facilities in Chicago to do this, and highly doubt that Amtrak's going to provide them with floor space at 18th Street to do the maintenance. So they're going to have to build some sort of maintenance facility somewhere close to the railroad tracks to maintain this equipment. So stay tuned for that. We got a caller?
We are going to get a caller, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, state of Illinois ordered 33 of them for the Amtrak routes here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting where they're gonna maintain them.
Well, yeah, they just recently, in fact, a week ago, they had some on display at the California State Railway Museum, the first one for California.
Yeah, people think they're Amtrak locomotives, and they're not. They're owned by the state of Illinois. Amtrak is merely the operator. So people are going, oh, is that the new Amtrak paint scheme? Like, no.
I understand we have another caller line. Mr. Mazer, is this of you?
This is me, Ed Mazer.
Well,
Glad
welcome.
to join you tonight.
Welcome to Chicago Junction, sir.
My pleasure.
We've had discussions with several clubs and everything, and I had asked you to for this interview because you being the past president of the Lionel Operating Train Society, or LOTS, that you could extol the benefits of a nationwide club.
Yep, we are a national club. We've got membership of about 2,100 people. We have membership in each of the 50 states, plus a few members in Canada, one in Australia, and a couple in Mexico.
Okay, so we are international.
I guess we are international in that sense. That means when they buy one of our club cars or convention cars or receive our magazine called The Switcher, which comes out 6 times a year, they have to pay a little extra because it goes overseas.
But it's worth the price.
Well, we certainly hope so. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary. This year, our national convention will be from July 8th through the 14th or 15th, if that's a Saturday night, in Denver, Colorado.
I couldn't think of a better place to be.
Oh, a lot of places to ride trains out there, and we'll be doing a lot of train rides. Lots conventions always have train rides. We always encourage a steam excursion if we can, and we do a lot of visiting of home layouts. And even though we're primarily an O gauge club, we have no hesitation about combining the different gauges, S and HO and G and you name it, N and Z. So just so our members have a good time, have a lot of fun.
And just see what everybody else is doing.
See what everybody else is doing, what kind of new ideas are out there. What is it that people are looking for to add to their train layouts or their train collections.
Or another facet of it that they didn't think of. That's what I've noticed about the club. Is a wide range of ideas and sharing going on amongst the members.
Well, I think that's true of most of the national train clubs, that people are willing to share ideas, are always looking for help, like to get together and talk about toy trains, talk about real trains. Many of our members who come to the national conventions come via Amtrak if they have the time, as opposed to driving or someone flying out. So we have a lot of fun just talking about trains from about 7 o'clock in the morning until whenever the last person turns in.
Yeah, can't think of a better day than that.
Oh, it's a great day. You know, everybody puts on their train hat and boards the train. At times we've had the ability to offer some of our members a ride in the cab of a locomotive. In fact, a couple times we've had some of our members actually drive the locomotive, if that's the correct term. So that's always a big, big hit. And we finish up our convention with a massive and gala banquet dinner, at which we sometimes have some blind and open train auctions. And also everybody who attends goes home with some sort of train commemorative. It may be a boxcar or a tank car, a caboose, something to add to their layout. And if you don't like what you've picked, you could always trade with someone else.
Now, you're always looking for new ideas and such, and I see that you send out. I guess they send out a questionnaire to ask people what they want. Is that correct?
Yeah, we you know, the problem with a lot of clubs is you get a few people who become the movers and shakers in the club, and they make the decisions about where should we hold the next convention, what type of cars should we produce. All of the train clubs are dependent on selling cars to keep in business. You couldn't do it just from membership fees. Our membership is $35 a year, and for that you get 6 issues of our Switcher magazine. You receive first crack at our special edition cars. For example, about 10 years ago, we started a series that we call the Santa Fe War Bonnet series. Our first offering was a SD40 locomotive in the War Bonnet scheme that had never been done by any club before. And we sold out. We sold about almost 600 of those locomotives. And since then, we've issued in that series things like a box car and a trailer on flat car, 2-bay covered hopper, damage control car, caboose, mint car, a crane car, and a work caboose. This year, if it ever arrives across the Pacific, we're waiting for a War Bonnet tank car, and we'll be offering a War Bonnet coil gondola next year. And we try to get the best price we can for our members. It's not easy dealing with the likes of Mike's Train House or Atlas or Lionel. So we always have to figure out what can we price this at so that our members will respond, at the same time keep our club operating. It's a volunteer organization. We have one paid employee, our office manager, who does 10 other jobs. But, like any other volunteer organization, it's dependent on people who are willing to give of their time and their effort and their energy and their creativity. And we usually issue about 3 cars a year. We issue a convention car. For example, this year for Denver, we're doing a Celestial tea seasoning maxi stack. Celestial Seasonings is located in Denver. That'll be that's been a good seller for us. Then we're also offering a meat car for the convention, and this year it's Denver and Rio Grande ore cars, and we'll do a 3rd car, which will be the Santa Fe coil gondola car. Now, next year we'll be meeting in New Hampshire, I believe. So we'll have a convention car that will reflect some New England area railroad. We're talking about maybe doing a Boston and Maine work caboose for the meat car, maybe a beer car. We've had a good success with beer cars. They seem to be very popular with collectors. Last year we did a Yingling beer car. Yingling is the oldest brewery in the United States. We did 700 of those cars, and it was a total sellout. That was a big surprise. We were thinking in terms of 500 or so. So beer cars are very, very popular. You're getting beer collectors, you're getting train collectors, you're getting your boxcar collector, and so on. So you're really addressing 3 different markets. So that's something that we look forward to doing. Then we have our convention, the switcher, the club cars. We have a buy and sell board on the internet so that people can sell items that they no longer care to have in their collection, and perhaps buy some pieces that they missed out on. And the big thing is the camaraderie. Everybody in the club, the men, the women, whatever, really like trains. And some people have attended 35 out of our 40 conventions, and it's like a family reunion when everybody gets together.
Yeah, it is. I have to admit, I enjoyed myself when I attend. So.
Absolutely. And, sometimes you go there and you don't see someone that you've seen over the years at the conventions. That may be your only time you really have any face-to-face or even any kind of conversation. You begin to wonder, hey, where's Joe? How's he feeling? How's he doing? Has he left us for that big railroad in the sky? So it's a wonderful hobby to be able to share with all people who feel somewhat the same way that you do.
Yep, it is. It's nice, trying to explain it to the younger generation and to get them involved.
This is not easy. This is the question. It's
you gotta
demographics.
They got to learn to use their hands.
Yep. And, you look at these kids, I look at my grandkids, and they can use their hands and fingers very well on their iPads and all their electronic games. But I'm not so sure how they would be at the controls of a ZW or putting a locomotive or a car that's come off the track back onto the track. So you really have to work at getting them involved and getting them interested.
Yeah, I guess I lucked out. My daughter kept me away from my granddaughter because she didn't want me to corrupt her. And when she was in preschool, I guess they had a month where they played with Thomas the Tank Engine, and she got train crazy from that. And my daughter just shakes her head. Okay, Dad, let her play.
Absolutely.
And I am proud to say she's an owner of 8 Lionel train sets and nice little layout, and she can handle them with the best.
Good for her, and good for you. And the size of the layout isn't as important as just having a layout.
Well, that's it. And she switches the trains back all the way around, and it's not that big, but it's just right for her.
And I've always been amazed at how little space a simple layout always takes. And as you get older, more and more mature, and I'm 75 almost, it gets harder and harder to get down on the floor of the carpet, put down a circle of track, and pick yourself up and operate the trains. It's so much nicer to have a little layout that, even if you could fold it up and store it in a closet or the garage, than being forced to bend up and down constantly. So there's good exercise also involved in being a trained person.
Oh, that's just it. Yeah, and you got to keep using your mind, right, so you can move it around very easy.
Absolutely.
Ed, thank you very much for talking with us.
Well, it's been my delight. I'm sorry that I couldn't join in person, but look forward to doing this again. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll talk again in the future.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ed. I hope to see you in the future, and hopefully before you get to Denver. If not, I'll see you after.
You got it. Take care.
Yes, sir. He is a good guy.
Yes.
He is definitely a trained person. What he does, he worked with Mike Moore at Toys and Trains yesteryear. Him and a few of the other guys. There's a whole group that were the core in lots that got me involved with them. Once I slowed down, when I first got hired.
He's been out to the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, his group, and then the St. Louis group from Lots. We did a special open house for them to accommodate them because the St. Louis bunch came in one of those big touring coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you talk about the magic of trains. Trains are where you find them, and they're not always paired up with physical tracks. I stumbled across a place called the Green Line Coffee Shop the other day at 61st and Eberhart, and the whole inside of the building are the old white porcelain bricks like they used to build the CTA stations out of.
I'll take your word for it.
And it's a coffee shop and sandwich shop. It's decent. Food's decently priced. But they've got some great old photos up on the walls. And in the front window, they've got a board. It's maybe 3 foot by 4 foot, black with the traditional white stenciling. And it's got Englewood and King Drive and 51, 47, 43, all the stops that used to be on the Green Line. And pictures on the wall. There's a picture on the wall with the Trianon Ballroom. Now, I couldn't determine whether that was the Trianon in Chicago or someplace else, but there's another one there for Tauber, Tauber. I don't know if it was a furniture company or whatever. I'm going to have to do a little digging to see, what was up on the north side when the Trianon was there. I know my mom and dad used to go dancing at the Trianon when my dad first went into the Army in 1942. He'd 5 or 6 buddies would pile in a car and drive in from Chanute Field down just north of Champaign, and make the most out of a weekend. I was traveling last weekend with my wife, went to see our son in Washington, D.C., and we stopped in Byron, Ohio at the Quality Inn. Ran out of daylight, and I'm not much of a night driver. And in the breakfast room were 4 large oil murals, all dealing with the Wabash Railroad. There was a beautiful painting of the city of Lafayette coach. Another painting of two trains passing on a curve. There was one that had a drum head for the Wabash Cannonball. And then there were some signs in that room. And the one sign had to be 2 foot tall and 16 foot wide. And it said Fort Wayne. It was green with green with gold trim and gold letters. And then there were 2 other signs. And I presume they were destination signs, because one said Toledo 95 and Detroit 146, and the other said St. Louis 342 and Kansas City, I think it was 456. It sort of washed out a little bit with my cell phone camera. But I mean, these are just beautiful old pieces of nostalgia, and they had billboard, sheets of paper printed up and then attached to pieces of planking, and covered over with some kind of clear paint, probably acrylic. So you could still read them, and they were every bit of 100 years old if they were a day. It was just really nice. Made scarfing down the powdered eggs that much easier. The only thing that breakfast was missing was a metal tray. Brian and I understand that.
Hey, the Wabash Cannonball, the train, came after the song.
Yes.
The song was not about the train was about the song.
Little piece of trivia. I found that out after too. All right. Before I forget, for those that would like to learn more about the Lionel Operating Train Society, they can go to www.lots.org.
And if you follow us on Facebook, we will post a link.
Yes, we can post a link to it, and also to Operation Lifesaver.
We will do that too.
Which will be at www.oli.gov.
There was a short news piece on the news yesterday. Very short, buried to be exact. There has been a $6.65 million settlement paid to a person that was injured in the CTA Blue Line crash of 2 years ago, where the engineer apparently fell asleep and ran off the end of the rail.
Yeah, that's the one that climbed the escalator.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah, the judgments are starting.
Motorman.
That was their attempt to bring the people right to the gate.
Why can't we get closer? Speaking of government.
There goes our ratings.
No, actually, the Amtrak wreck that happened in Philadelphia last year, the high speed around the curve, where 8 people died, though the investigator, the DA, said there wasn't enough to arrest the engineer, apparently the big honcho put the engineer under arrest.
Big honcho who?
The state governor.
Oh, okay.
The attorney general. State's attorney general. They put him under arrest, and he'll stand trial for involuntary manslaughter.
And he also sued Amtrak, the engineer. Sued Amtrak for not providing a safe enough working environment and improper training.
Well, you guys are engineers. What do you think about it? One, you guys had some pretty close ones, or maybe a bumper denter here and there. Should you be arrested?
I didn't kill anybody.
That is true.
Nope. Didn't kill.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't
Almost, but, that's like horseshoes.
Didn't they weren't they able to determine that he was on his cell phone?
No.
No.
No, they checked his cell phone records and he was not on his phone. I think he suffered from HUA syndrome, head up. He got distracted by the radio communication. He wasn't paying attention. He got to the curve. Instead of braking, he powered up. And it happens. It's one of the things that I used to stress with the student engineers is that the most important part of your job is operating the train. It's not operating the radio. There's just so much going on the radio, distractions, that you could easily get caught up. In this case, another train had been rocked by vandals, and he lost his attention.
Yeah.
It's called situational awareness.
And the fact that a lot of the times they want you to talk to them on the radio when you're supposed to be concentrating on operating the track.
Right. I always tell I tell the guys, I said, look, the dispatcher will still be there after you're done doing what you're supposed to do. And if he doesn't like it, too bad. But yeah, there's a lot, working as an engineer, you really have to be on your toes all the time. I mean, it's not something where you just kick back and look out the window and, hey, it's a nice day out there. I think I'll just cruise along. There's so much going on. And you got to be not only thinking of what's directly ahead of you, but you got to be thinking a mile of what's ahead of you. You always have to be thinking about where the train's going, where it's going to be, what you have to deal with. You got a speed restriction coming up. You got to be ready to set the brakes for it.
Set the brakes, and also your field of vision is very big. Going around the curve, if you're in restricted speed, should you be going the maximum of restricted speed, or do you slow down? So.
Now, whether I think he should have been indicted for involuntary manslaughter, no.
Oh, I agree.
But that'll all play out in the courts.
Well, that's why Metro's been at least on the northwest side, clear cutting all the right-of-ways. I mean, bushes, trees, everything is gone.
Oh yeah.
So that you guys could see better. Well, the engineers could see better.
Well, it took several problems, and then go. Oh, maybe we can have a way of clearing some of this up.
Of course, then when you go and cut down trees in Hyde Park, everybody gets upset.
Yeah. Oh, Brian, I see you got something there.
Oh, we got a lot of things.
We got 2 minutes.
Well, we can go a little bit over.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But what we'll make it right up to station identification. But we were talking government, and another one of Dave's favorite subjects, the good old California lawmakers.
I'm moving out there. I like what they do.
And California
is
now going to be seeking tougher locomotive emission rules. Sacramento, California. The California Air Resources Board is asking the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to toughen nationwide emission rules on locomotives, ones that go beyond the current Tier 4 standard. Diesel and gas turbine worldwide reports that the California Board, under the umbrella of California's own Environmental Protection Agency, wants locomotives operated in the state to have zero or near zero emissions. The board's chairman, Mary D. Nichols, says the new standards are needed to protect and clean up the air in high-risk communities, specifically ones closer to rail yards. Reducing locomotive-related emissions and the resulting air toxic hotspots near rail yards is a high priority for disadvantaged communities within California and around the nation. Nichols says a new generation of locomotives will also, once in operation, offer fuel savings to the rail industry.
Well,
they gave away the money to put in an electrified system.
I had a college professor, and this is going back a while because I sat my last exam the day before Thanksgiving, 1972, said, when politicians write a bill or make a public announcement, sometimes the intention is a draw, not as in an even match where neither side wins, but how big a gimme is going to come into the politician's office. This sounds like someone's trying to get something by squeezing a stone.
Well, the railroads,
And that's only my opinion.
the railroads are making strides in,
They have done a lot.
like a lot of these rail yards out in California. They're using liquid gas instead of diesel. They're trying to cut. They're very aware of the emissions problem, and I don't see the railroads responding to something like this, basically replacing all their locomotives. That's an expensive proposition.
It's something that can't be done.
Oh, it could be done over a long
the
period of time, but we're talking decades.
This is WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.
The Norfolk Southern, forgive me, has a bunch of engines that are classified GP33 Ecos.
Yeah.
And they've got the big green swoop from the cab to the end of the long hood.
Yes. I saw one of them in Roanoke.
Yeah, they're in the 4700 series. They're using them mostly as yard jeeps, but they're supposed to be very low emission engines. It's obvious that the railroads are trying. It's just the people in California are so much more trying.
Well,
I'm sorry,
let's
I'm
see.
being sarcastic.
Well, let's see now. The Santa Fe BNSF comes in at northern Arizona, crosses the border at Needles. So on the Arizona side, they get built this great big rail yard, and when the freight train rolls up, they take everything off and put it on trucks and send it into California,
They put it on hand carts.
or a long conveyor belt.
If you want
20
something
mule teams.
delivered, you need to go to the border and pick it up yourself.
Yes.
Remember that refrigerator you ordered? Well, it's waiting for you.
So they could do that. They could stop at the border, unload, send it by horse and wagon, and horses are environmental friendly.
Unless you're behind them. On a somewhat more cheerful note, Menards has reissued their 13.5-inch O-gauge flat car with the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter on it. When it was out the first time, it sold out, and a lot of people wanted it and couldn't get it. So it just announced it about 2 weeks ago. And today, they sent out an e-blurb with the 13.5-inch bi-level car carrier, and it comes with 6 die-cast cars on it, the same ones you can buy in the store, and no heralds. But what they do is they issue heralds that you can peel off the page and put on the car for 12 different road names. So that's a $49.99 car. The 6 little cars are $4.50 a piece. So basically, you're getting the bi-level car carrier for about $22. And they also are issued. They also have the promotion going that if you buy a rail car, you get the Menards panel truck at no charge. And if you have it sent to your local Menards store, you don't pay shipping. So.
All right. On the home front, Illinois Railway Museum wants to preserve a Morristown and Erie Alco locomotive. The Illinois Railway Museum announced this week it is trying to raise $65,000 to preserve a Morristown and Erie C424 that once worked for the Toledo, Peoria, and Western. The museum's announcement comes just weeks after New Jersey's Tri-State Railway Historical Society purchased the Morristown and Erie's number 19 from the short line. These were the two lines that rejuvenated the Morristown and Erie back in the 80s. Museum officials hope to raise enough money in the next 6 months to buy M&E 18, originally built as TP&W number 800, before it was sold to a scrapper. Officials say they need at least $50,000 to purchase the locomotive, $7,500 to move it to Illinois, and $6,000 to construct track to store the locomotive on. The locomotive is in operating condition. The museum plans to repaint number 18 in the TP&W colors, while the Tri-State officials are going to keep it number 19 in the M&E red.
So it's a race against the scrapper.
Yep.
So when they're both back, there'll be an unmatched set.
And coming up May 20th, in a week, there's going to be a night photo session that will feature the Chicago Northwestern equipment at the Illinois Railway Museum. They're going to host photo night the evening of May 20th as part of its Chicago Northwestern Day. Tickets are required and will be limited. Kevin A. Sadowski will be providing the lighting. Proceeds from the night photo shoot will go towards painting C&W SD 40-2, number 6847. Some of the features, all C&W feature will include the Alco RSD 5 1689, GP7 1518, GP7R 4160. The said foretold the SD 40-2, the F7A 411, commuter cab car 151, and GEC 449Ws 8646 and 8701, which are the original paints and still on Union Pacific active locomotives that are stored there.
Interesting story about those, too. How they got preserved from getting repainted as UP engines. Northwestern employees kept on sending them places so they didn't go to the paint shop. Former Northwestern employees that worked for the UP. They kept on being scheduled for repaint, and it somehow managed to be assigned somewhere away.
In the historic locomotive mode that we're in, Durbin and Greenbrier Valley, West Virginia. They are a short line, and they're actually running Cass now. They're the owners of the Cass Scenic Railway, or operators for them. And Cass had gotten BL2, number 82, Western Maryland, from the museum. They had two of them, so the museum ended up sending it there, along with Western Maryland number 6, Shay, which is now operating. So they completely restored it, got it back operating condition, and painted it with the Fireball paint scheme for Western Maryland. It was released from the Cass shop on April 28th. So they got it out for different paint schemes, and eventually it's going to end up in Elkins, West Virginia, and run passenger trains out of there and come into Cass through the back door in Spur when they run trains up to there. It was built in 1948. It's one of the few remaining because they didn't really make that many.
Right. BL stands for
Branch line.
branch line.
It was like taking the switcher and putting a streamlined car body on to make it look good on branch line roads, like a little bit of a main line engine.
Right. And they were sort of the locomotives that engineers either loved or hated. Some guys loved operating them, other guys didn't. They had terrible sight lines for switching.
but they look sharp.
Yeah, they did. Nice looking locomotives.
Put a set of fins on them, and they could have been a
An Edsel.
1950s car.
But yeah, because I saw them work when they were working on the Wisconsin and Calumet. They had that one all set up, and the other one's now running finally.
I have a BL2 in my collection of engines. It's a distinctive piece when you get it out on the layout because there's just not a lot of companies made them.
Well, as long as it's a BL, not a BLT.
That's lunch.
We still going on here?
Yeah, we'll get finished.
Okay.
up.
Yeah. All right. Metro has requested proposals for new rail cars and locomotives. Metro published a request for proposals for at least 25 new rail cars plus many more rail cars above that amount if possible, depending on responses to the request, the amount of funds available, and whether Metro can use financing alternatives such as leasing to maximize its funding. Metro expects to award the contract for the new cars in the first quarter of 2018, and the actual delivery of the first cars will be part of the negotiations and dependent on the manufacturer's capacity to build. They're also soliciting proposals for 10 new locomotives, plus as many more if possible. It expects to award that contract later in 2018 with delivery the first in 2020. The new locomotives will allow Metro to begin to replace outdated diesel locomotives serving Chicago Union Station with modern cleaner-burning locomotives to improve the air quality for the 120,000 passengers who travel through the station each day.
They'll send the old ones to California.
Yeah. Metro will use 8.35.7 million in recently released funds from a previous state capital program to help pay for the equipment, plus a 22.9 million surplus from 2016. And Metro also acquired 7 new cars from Sumitomo Corporation through the settlement of a legal dispute over $8.65 million in delays from its subcontractor Nippon Shiro incurred in delivering the new cars for the Metro Electric. These are going to be for diesel cars, and they will be coaches, not cab cars. And last but not least, Metro wraps up its AmeriRail car rehabilitation program. This was a rehabilitation of 176 cars that was done at the 49th Street shop on the Rock Island District line. Built by AmeriRail between 1995 and 1998, the cars were gutted and outfitted with new amenities to improve passenger service. Some of the amenities included electric outlets to power smartphones and other small electronics, sensitive edge outer doors that retract if they come in contact with a person or object, 4 new LED signs per car to display announcements, new toilets, washrooms, wheelchair lifts, composite floors, and seats. So that was a big deal because before they used to send stuff out to get rehabbed, and they're also doing a locomotive upgrade program at 49th Street, which is great because that money stays local. It doesn't go out of state.
Yeah.
The 2 VRE bi-level cars that I talked about last month are still sitting in the 47th Street yard and have not been moved.
Well, if you look on the Fox Lake branch, a bunch of them are sitting there too, right by the roundout turnout.
And there's about 6 of them out in Elk Grove Village, down in one of the industrial tracks.
I guess the scrappers are, not that anxious.
They're loaded with asbestos.
Well, yeah.
Because a couple of Metro cars went to General Iron over there by Goose Island, and they had a heck of a time with the asbestos.
But these ones from the VRE shouldn't have asbestos in it. They didn't come out of the electric service.
No, they came from their old Northwestern cars.
Right.
Yeah.
They were built back in the 50s. So they have asbestos in them.
When VRE got them, they didn't gut them. They only partially gut them. They just took the seats out.
Just like when they rebuilt the bi-levels for Pullman, for the electrics, they didn't gut them like they should have. They could have gotten rid of that asbestos, but then that would have added to the cost.
Yeah, that's expensive. Asbestos.
So it's like the old Bardol commercial. You can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Yep.
Just pass it on down. It's somebody else's problem.
All right. Good news in steam. Duluth and Northwestern, number 28, makes its first test runs. For the first time, steam will be back in the Duluth, Minneapolis area. They rebuilt consolidation number 28 from the Lake Superior Railroad Museum. And she'll be running little trips around there. So she'll be in good company with 261. And Tornado. Tornado in England. She breezes past the 100-mile-an-hour mark. And she's doing it when they were getting her certified for 90-mile-an-hour speed. Yeah, this isn't high-speed rail over there, by the way. No. High speed, I think, for them starts at 130 miles an hour. But a 100-mile-an-hour steam operation returned to Britain's railways this week. One night only, but new build steam locomotive Tornado overtook the 100-mile trial mark on Tuesday and early Wednesday on the East Coast main line between Newcastle and Doncaster, England. The purpose of the test was to enable certification for regular operation at 90 miles an hour, operating charter and excursion trains. United Kingdom certified rules require that speed be exceeded by at least 10% to demonstrate safety in other systems. The work, despite the higher speed, the locomotive achieved about 101 miles an hour near Thirsk, north of York, England, and on the southbound run from Newcastle during the early morning hours on April 12th. 100-mile-an-hour steam-operated trains were last operated in Britain in the late 60s on the route from London to Bournemouth, England, where, despite official limit being slower, express trains regularly operated at 100 miles an hour during the final years of steam operation. The last one was believed to be in 1967. There is one other locomotive in Europe approved for a 100-mile-an-hour operation, a German 462 Type 18, number 18201, which operated a 100-mile-an-hour passenger train charter in 2011, but has since been restricted to 75 mile an hour. I guess didn't want to show off.
You cannot go that fast.
Is that a veteran engine, or is that one built from plans?
That was a brand new build. Was built over a 20-year period, raising the money and building it from scratch. It is a brand new build, and it's built from the plans of Greasley Pacific, designed by a designer by the name of Grizzly. And since they scrapped all the A1s, they decided to build one.
Now, they have fixed frames, right? They didn't have the flexible ones like our locomotives did.
Well, they have bar frames.
Okay. Because I was under the impression that because they had the fixed frames, they had certain limitations on curves.
No, they have bar frames. Cut from plates. Not single forge cast like a lot of the locomotives here. But then again, the Norfolk Western 611, the Queen is running beautifully, by the way, gentlemen.
Whoop.
The Queen 611. Whoop. Yep, you got it. That's a Tim Allen engine. More power. R.
First steam train I rode behind.
But her and her sisters regularly ran at 100 miles an hour. And when you're running through the mountains, you run as fast as you can. And through the mountains, it's basically 45 mile an hour average. But you get on the plains, you let it go, so this way you make good speed. That's why curves are tilted.
Brian, what's the word from the Holy Train Shop in Cheyenne?
Things are going along good. Parts are being repaired. The boiler is getting cleaned. The ultrasound's just about finished.
So still on profile to get out on rail?
Yep.
late this year or next summer for
no,
sure?
No.
Or am I off by a
2000.
year?
Well, no. By the end of 2018, it'll be ready. She'll be ready for her operation for the celebration.
Outstanding.
And the celebration is?
The since yesterday was the 148th anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike.
Okay.
It would be the 150th anniversary.
All right.
Cool.
See, it's like graduating from high school in 1969. 69 is so fine. Driving the Golden Spike in 1869, it's so fine.
Just gets better with age.
So, on that happy note.
Snakes on the train.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it time to tie up?
Yes.
I believe we are coming finally into the station at the end of our journey, people. Thank you for traveling with us. Remember that we can be looked at on Facebook, and if you have any requests or you want to make a comment, please put it on the Facebook page and we will get it.
We'll send it to Jack Ryan for response.
Yes. That's what he gets for not being here.
Yeah, any nasty comments, we'll forward to him.
In triplicate.
And if His Eminence was here, he would wish you all happy rails to you.
As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be heard on the website at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes, and also sample some of the other great programs that are being offered. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou. Till next month, when we journey on to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, May the 15th, the year 2017. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Thursday, May the 11th, the year 2017. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.